Hello, everybody. This is Rick Manning. Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government. Hope you're all doing well. Thank you for joining us today on this live stream. Americans for Limited Government is proud to present you with live streams. I try to do them pretty regularly, but try to present them, especially when there's stuff that's going on that really is important. And right now, there's stuff going on that's really important. The Senate is back in session, and that means your rights are in jeopardy. The Senate, Senator Schumer, the majority leader, has been a lifetime gun banner. He's never thought that anybody should own a gun, except for his security guards. And as a result, he is stepping on the throat of the Second Amendment at this very moment. As we know, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is a lifelong gun banner. She wants to ban your guns. She makes no bones about it. President Joe Biden has decided that a great way to get the public to try to pay attention to something besides his failed presidency is to try to ban guns and say he did something. And those are his words, we do something. Well, let's just talk about what that actually looks like. First of all, I've got up on the screen a Fox News article that I think makes some sense. Biden's proposed assault weapons ban has a serious constitutional problem. It does have a serious constitutional problem. The fact is, the Supreme Court has decided very clearly that people have a right to keep and bear arms. An individual right to keep and bear arms. The Heller decision, which is now settled law, as the left likes to say, has made that abundantly clear. This is not a collective right; it is an individual right. We've known that for 240 years, but it just takes it takes the judiciary sometimes a little bit of time to catch up. But let's just kind of look at the origins of this and constitutionally. The seminal Supreme Court decision prior to Heller was called the Miller decision. It was in the late 1930s, and the Miller decision. By the way, there was nobody arguing in opposition of banning guns like sawed-off shotguns and machine guns and the like. So the Miller decision said very clearly that machine guns could not be banned. The reason machine guns could not be banned, they set up a rigorous registration system, but they could not be banned. And the reason they couldn't be banned was because they were appropriate for military activity. So for all those people who say, oh, we don't mind you having guns that are for shooting squirrels, we just don't want you to have guns that are for military purposes. The bottom line is, since 1939, it's been clear that the individual right to keep and bear arms is for guns that actually have military purposes. So that's what preceded the Heller decision about 60 years later. And in the Heller decision, it was decided that you have an individual right to keep and bear arms. We now have the Supreme Court case that's being decided right now, which will decide whether people have the right to bear arms and if states can actually deny people the right to bear arms. And, you never know how those decisions are going to go, but what we've been seeing over the past 10 years has been a clear push at the Supreme Court to expand the ability of people to exercise their Second Amendment rights. And how much the events in Uvalde influenced those decisions, I can't answer. What I can tell you is the single greatest movement in this country has been towards the individual right to bear arms. As someone who served as an NRA state lobbyist in the late 80s, early 90s, I was the state lobbyist in Florida, working with Florida leader and NRA later President Marion Hammer, to pass what was then a seminal piece of legislation that allowed for licensure for people to carry. And the concealed carry permit, the key thing about it was there was no discretion. If you were not a criminal, if you met certain basic criteria, you were allowed to get that permit. And we basically took on and beat the law enforcement from South Florida, Broward County in particular, Palm Beach County, who refused to issue permits. And we got that done, along with a bill that made it so they couldn't pass local gun control laws. And that became kind of the leapfrog on which the rest of the concealed carry laws around the country began to pass. And now we have a number of states which are constitutional carry states, where you don't need to ask permission from the government to carry. You just can carry. And the presumption is you're a law-abiding citizen. And places like, it actually goes, there's only one state that had that provision when I was an NRA lobbyist, that was Vermont. And now there are, I think, a dozen or so states that have it. So all the movement in terms of the law has been towards individual liberties in this regard. What's changed is simple. What's changed is we have created a system now where criminals are released early from jail, and we have homicides on the street escalating in a way that we haven't seen since the Miami Vice days of the early 80s. And as a result, we now have drug crime. We have murders the murder rates are increasing dramatically. And it's largely because we have a drug war going on in our country, and it's fueled by the cartels from the South, who Joe Biden has opened the doors of our border to come in, send their soldiers to the streets of our cities, the small, medium, and large cities, and to take over those streets, to dominate the criminal enterprises in those streets. And they don't care who they kill and what they have to do to control that territory. So that's what our real criminal situation is. Our real criminal situation is that we have drugs flowing into our country at a rate that is unprecedented. We have opioid deaths up by 30,000 people this past year. 30,000 people. More people died of opioids addiction and overdoses than did in the prior year. Under President Trump, that number had been lowered to 70,000. We were heading in the right direction because we cracked down on the border, because we were cracking down on fentanyl in particular. And we were pressuring the Chinese not to ship it, and we were holding them accountable. But now it's it's Katie bar the door, and fentanyl is basically being stripped into a lot of different drugs. And our children and adult addicts are paying the price, and they're dying on the streets. And that's the reality of Joe Biden's open border. So when he sits here and he wants to talk about a culture of death, I want to just say to him, you are the culture of the death. You are the embodiment of the culture of death, because it's your policies that have caused a drug war in this country, a war against Americans on our own streets. And you can't walk away from that by sitting there and trying to ban guns. Banning a gun of a cartel member doesn't do any good. It doesn't stop that cartel member from having a gun. It stops anybody who might want to protect their own household from having a gun, but it doesn't stop that cartel member from having a gun. What's more, your vice president, Kamal Harris, supported an actual law, supported letting people out on bail without bail. They're basically, you get arrested, you get turned back onto the street before the officer gets a report. And if you think that's being kind of apocryphal and not really true, that's what the sheriff of LA County says happens on a regular basis. So let's just be clear. That is the reality. That is the reality of the Biden policies. It's prosecutors supported by Biden allies George Soros who sit there and don't prosecute violent crimes, don't prosecute property crimes, who basically say, we're going to give you a free pass to commit crime in America in our jurisdiction, and then expect that you're going to have crime go down. No, you let people out who commit crimes. You don't punish them. You don't protect society from them. And guess what you get? You get more crimes. That's what you get. So you have prosecutors who won't prosecute. You have mayors who don't believe that people should be that people should be found guilty for property crimes. Property crime, in California, they've made a law so you basically can steal up to $1,000 at a single sitting, and it's a misdemeanor. It's no longer it's basically a fine. By the way, the fine's less than the dollar amount of what you stole. And there's no instances of misdemeanors, no reason to keep you in jail. And so we have roving gangs going through California, breaking into shops, high-end and mid-size, and places like CVS's, drugstores, and stealing stuff with impunity because there's no penalty, because it's okay. It's been approved. Because after all, remember the catchphrase of Antifa, if we burn it down, it's okay. Because after all, the insurance companies will pay you back. So that's the reality of the Biden criminal justice system. It's one that focuses on going after people who have flags flying in their front yard and protecting those who burn them on the streets of America. So when Joe Biden wants to talk about a culture of death, I say to President Biden, sir, look in the mirror. You embody that culture of death. Let's talk a little bit about specific gun control laws that are being proposed. Matthew McConaughey, who I'm writing a piece on, I'm struggling to remember how to spell his name, and I keep spelling it a different way. But Matthew McConaughey, who has been in many movies, but I prefer to just refer to him as the dazed and confused actor, since that was one of his first roles. The dazed and confused Matthew McConaughey is wandering around the Senate with a lot of photographers today, getting pictures of people like Senator Chuck Grassley and Senator Dick Durbin and others, talking about reasonable gun control, that we can sacrifice the Second Amendment for reasonable gun laws. Well, his reasonable gun laws, the two proposals they've been talking about, I'll spend a little time on the first one, I'll spend a lot of time on the second. First proposal he's been talking about is, we just need to make it so 18-year-olds can't buy rifles or shotguns. Well, I'm sorry, but if 18-year-olds are old enough to go get shot and killed for our country in the military, then they're old enough to be able to buy a rifle. Okay, very simple. If we're going to send kids overseas, call them men, send them to boot camp for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and bulk them up, and then send them out to fight our nation's battles for freedom, we darn well better be willing to let them be able to purchase a firearm when they're back home, purchase a rifle or shotgun when they're back home. So first of all, that's just basic on the 18-year-old if Congress wanted to do something, and of course Matthew McConaughey hasn't thought about this that much, I've thought about it a lot. If they actually wanted to do something, well, make the the juvenile justice records available for the NCIC, for the background check. Make those available for the background check for the first 3 years until they're 21. And that way, if somebody shouldn't be getting a gun and they're 18 and there's no adult record, at least there's a capacity check and see if there's a reason they shouldn't because of crimes they've committed in the past. And that would be a reason that, you want to be reasonable? That's just common sense. And but let's see, we'll see what the left says why they can't do that, because quite honestly, if you want to do something about people who are 18, let's be honest, you should not discriminate against kids. But if there's a reason why they shouldn't get a gun, I don't think anybody really wants them to be able to. Now let's talk red flag laws, which is the other bonehead idea that McConaughey has. Last week, there was a trial 10 days ago. There was a trial held across the street from my office, featuring a guy named Johnny Depp and his former spouse, Amber Heard. And that trial was all about a spouse publicly saying that their husband was committing domestic abuse against them, and that accusation was false. In a red flag world, that accusation has to be taken as absolutely the truth. And the police officer might come, in this case, a police officer did come in one occasion, to the household, has a responsibility to remove any firearms from the household. Doesn't matter if it's true, doesn't matter, none of that matters. There's no innocent until proven guilty. The presumption is you're guilty. And it doesn't matter if you're a male being accused by a female, or if you're a female being accused by a male. So let's just take it from the feminist perspective. If you're sitting there and you're a female and you're being stalked by your former boyfriend or something, okay? And you go off and you say to the police, and that former boyfriend, you get your restraining order, you do all that stuff. Your former boyfriend accuses you of threatening their life, saying you've got a gun and you're threatening their life. The police, under the red flag laws, are coming to your house and they're taking away your means of protection. And let's just be honest, that's what they are doing. That's what the red flag law does. And you have nothing to say about it. You can't defend yourself. We already have a case, at least one case in Maryland, where they have red flag laws, where a gentleman was awakened at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning by a bunch of cops coming to take away his guns. And these people, and he, tried to defend his household and ended up being killed. This is serious business. And when you start giving an accusation the weight of a conviction, and you don't have a judicial system that actually will allow for somebody to defend themselves, then there is no, essentially you are asking, you've ended the right. You've ended the right to keep and bear arms, because the presumption is you're guilty and they take your stuff. So those are red flag laws are extremely dangerous. And oh, by the way, for Matthew McConaughey, who's pretty well known for the consumption of illegal substances, as part of his coolness, he might think twice, because the consumption of those very substances are a disqualifier. And as a result, his very public attitude towards consuming illegal herbs creates a presumption on him that he's ineligible to own a firearm or possess a firearm, because it's against the law. So before Mr. McConaughey gets too far engrossed in trying to determine what you and I should be able to do, perhaps he should look in the mirror and think about the ramifications of what he's proposing to Congress on his own life. Because, folks, it gets black and white once it's in law. It's no longer, wiggle room. There's not discretion. If a cop is told you have to confiscate the gun, the cop has to confiscate the gun. They have to, whether it's, no matter what they see right there, because if that gun were later to be used in the commission of a crime or in some kind of way that was, in any way, that cop would be liable. The cop would be fired if they didn't confiscate that gun. So guess what? Every single way of the law will be towards gun confiscation. I've seen it in places like New Jersey where I was a lobbyist and we had just crazy stuff going on. And the fact is, they put this into federal law, and there'll be a fight in court, because it will allow for some illegal seizures of legally owned, constitutionally protected property. But let's just make sure the Senate doesn't do something stupid. If you go down to the comments below, there's a take action. I'd encourage you to take action on this and contact the Senate and the House and just tell them to not vote for gun bans, not vote for any more of this gun junk. I have to tell you, it's heartbreaking, but I'm not going to go down that path. Seeing how Republicans are cowering in this situation. Ted Cruz accepted. Ted Cruz went to the NRA convention and spoke. Donald Trump went to the NRA convention in Houston and spoke. But seeing how the Mitch McConnell Republicans in the Senate are cowering on this issue, because all they wanted was a nice election where nobody was paying any attention. Everybody was just going to vote against the other guys without the Republicans having to say anything and do anything to earn their vote. Well, now that's been all thrown upside down. And those same Republicans are now basically hiding in a corner with their thumbs in their mouths, hoping that nobody will say anything bad about them or force them to do anything. Well, the time when you prove who you are is when times are tough. And if those Republicans are not willing to stand up and fight for the rights of Americans, it's just the same as if they were the ones trying to take it away. Because the last thing because, well, I'll use an old term, they're effectively a Maginot Line against gun confiscation. And that is a cowering politician is the most pathetic sight to see. So it's up to, if they're going to cower, let's have them cower under the weight of hundreds of thousands of emails telling them to stand up and fight. They're going to cower. Let's have them cower, not to a Hollywood celebrity visiting their office, but to their constituents who are saying no, not only no, but hell no. It's time we stand up and we hold those politicians accountable and force them to understand that they work for you. And when they work for you, if they don't hear from you, they forget. So use the link, spread the word around. Let's create an avalanche on Capitol Hill. The Senate's in session for the next 3 weeks. The Constitution's in danger. And truthfully, your contacting your senator may be the only thing that gets between them and running for the door, seeking a solution to do something that neither solves the problem nor protects your freedoms. So that's a little bit of what I got. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to look at some of the comments and let's see. Hey, I got. I'm going to put Ralph Bridges here. As a veteran who gave 47 years with the Army, I say no one should hold office unless they've served their country a minimum of 4 years. Ralph, I'm going to disagree with you, and the reason I'm going to disagree with you is we actually need people who have a broad perspective, and one of the challenges of electing people who are used to taking orders and are used to taking orders from the top is that it's almost impossible to get them to say no to leadership when the leadership is wrong. And so you sit there and you suddenly have, and the way we actually get stuff done to advance freedom in this country with the never-ending kind of creep of the administrative state is to have people like Devin Nunes, who was a farmer, being the head of the House Intelligence Committee, saying this is wrong. We're not doing this. This is an encroachment on Americans' freedom. So while I have great respect for those who served in the military, to make it as a prerequisite for being a member of Congress, I think would be a mistake in that military training is completely opposite of being a free thinker. And we need people who are willing to think outside the constructs of that the administrative state puts into place in order to reestablish and affect more freedom in America. So I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with you. Let's see here. Darlene, shall not be infringed. Yeah, Congress shall make no laws. Okay, that's Congress. I think they're down the street here. Shall make no laws. And shall not be infringed. Okay, shall is a strong word. Okay, people miss this, and when you're writing laws, and I've written a few. When you're writing laws, the word shall is an imperative. It tells them that you can't. This isn't a wiggle room. There's oftentimes things will be written in such a way that you can be interpreted with multiple meanings. But shall is a directive, and not is a directive. Shall not be infringed means you can't make moves against it. And former Supreme Court justice was quoted as saying about a week ago that if you want to actually do something on guns, then you need to repeal the Second Amendment. Well, that's at least honest. That's at least honest. So, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Joe, put your amendment in to repeal the Second Amendment, and let's have a fight. But let's not play games the way you're playing games. Let's have a discussion about what's really happening in America. You want to have a discussion about what's really happening in America, guys? Let's have a discussion about the fact that we've got kids who are sitting in front of video screens, killing lots of people playing, Call of Duty. It's playing whatever the car game is that they play. We've got lots of that going on, and we've had it for a long time. So the question is, what effect does that have on people and desensitizing people? I don't think we've ever really found that answer out. What effect has the fact that we have a lot of families without fathers in those families, that the social construct of destruction of the family has created kids, particularly males, who are unbound by moral constructs? Well, guess what? That has an impact. Don't sit there and pretend that when you deconstruct the family, you say, oh, well, we don't need to have a father in the family, that it doesn't have an impact on male children. It does. That's just true. It's demonstrably true. So you want to do something? You want to do something that actually matters? Well, how about not worrying about outcome? Worry about what's creating the outcome. And it isn't an instrument. It's the psychological training that our kids are getting. You want to talk about some of that kind of stuff? Let's go to it. You want to talk about the fact that a lot of the people who've committed pretty heinous crimes in the past were people who were under psychiatric care and were taking psychotropic drugs and stopped taking them, and then went off and committed a heinous act. That was pretty true throughout. That's been pretty much a tried and true test in terms of most of the people who have actually done really bad things, is they were taking a drug and they stopped taking it. At what point is the fault of that system that it breaks down and fails? When you get down to it, there's a lot of different things you can look at. The instrumentality of whether somebody blows up a building or knifes 20 people or shoots people that's a means. You've got to figure out what the cause is. And we know that there are a lot of causes, but until we start looking at the actual disease and not the symptoms, you're going to continue to have a sick society. And that's and I'm not even talking about the fact that we've been at war with God for 60 years in our country. We've removed God from society. We've said freedom of worship is freedom to stand in a corner and pray silently. We're not even talking about that. Where you have a philosophy that there is no morality, that there is no absolute truth, that there is that good is bad and bad is good, which is where we're at today. I'm sorry, you don't get to blame a gun, a bullet, a fire extinguisher, anything that might be used. You don't get to blame those things when you poison the mind and you poison people and give them the idea and accept the idea and affirm the idea that there is no truth and there is no love and there is no God. When you affirm those things to people, don't expect them to act as if there is. Sorry, that's just the truth. So, and this isn't new. This isn't new. The Bible, I know aren't allowed to talk about such a strange thing, but the Bible has a very telling kind of back and forth between a guy named Pontius Pilate, who was the governor of Judea at the time of Jesus' living, and Jesus was talking to him at at his trial, and Pilate and Jesus tells him, I am truth, and lays out that he is truth. He is absolute truth. And Pilate says, "Caius veritas," what is truth? Because to Pilate, truth was power that comes from the barrel of or blade of a sword. For Mao, was power that all power comes from the barrel of a gun. For Jesus, truth was love. Truth was peace. Truth was goodness and a relationship with God. Well, sorry, folks, but you don't get to say there is no truth and then claim some moral standard. It doesn't exist. There is, you either believe that might makes right, or that there's absolute truth and absolute right. There are morals. You don't get to say that there are no morals. There's no moral gatekeeper. There's no God. That we're all just on our own. We're all just people who are created just a mishmash of cells that somehow came together in a flash of lightning, and we're just a set of mistakes over billions of years, culminating in this meat suit that we all live in. You don't get to say that and then say there's morality, because the essence of those who believe that there is no meaning, there's no God, there's no intelligent design, we are not created beings. The essence of that world is that, it's the essence of the Darwinian world, is that might makes right. Survival of the fittest. When you embrace survival of the fittest, don't complain when you have really bad stuff happen in that battle of who's fittest. Don't disdain my morality and then come to me and tell me, "Oh, I've got to ban your ability to protect yourself because it offends me." No, you don't have that right. You lose that right. Because when you turn away from basic morality, when you turn away from God, you don't have any anchor in what is right and wrong, and you have no ability to tell me what I have to believe and what I have to do. So, without enough theology, I'm going to go a few more. Michael Brand, this is the government that our founding fathers warned us about. Yep, this is the government that the founding fathers warned us about. And I find it intriguing that the same people who want to defund the police, the same people who don't want to prosecute criminals, are now the people who say, "Hey, we got to take away your guns." Joe Biden the other day talked about, and I did a video on this, and then it came out all crummy, so we didn't release it. But came out the other day and said 9mm bullets blow your lungs out your back, and that's why nobody survives being shot by a 9mm bullet. Made complete just garbage made up out of whole cloth, but it's what you can expect from people who have no boundary of truth. And so that's but yeah, that's this is the government that our founding fathers warned us about. And the fight that I fight every day is to try to make certain that the people who've been elected to fight to make certain that this is a restrained government, this is a limited government, are emboldened to make that fight. And once again, that's why I ask you to go back and go to the bottom, click on the link, tell friends. We need to get as many emails, as many contacts into Congress as possible. We need to get them in as soon as possible. And so anything you can do to spread the word would be great. Let's go. Shannon, bad guys don't abide by law. Yeah, well, that's true. It's an oxymoron to think that you're going to pass a law that's going to make it so a bad guy alters his behavior. Criminals by definition break laws, and And so the real thing that happens, and I used to talk about this a lot when I was an NRA lobbyist, and a little esoteric for the front page of the New York Times or the Philadelphia Inquirer, where up in Jersey when I used to do these fights a lot. But what we're seeing is a tearing of the fabric of society, and the fabric is being torn faster and faster. And when people who abide the law, people who fly the flag, when people who who believe in the United States of America and the concepts of individual freedom and liberty, when they become the enemy of the state, the social contract that we have amongst each other gets torn, it gets frayed. And gun control has been one of the first places where they've really been trying to fray that social contract. And now we're seeing it fraying everywhere and being ripped everywhere. But when they say to a law-abiding citizen, a criminal abused their rights and took an action which harmed others. And as a result of that, I'm now going to take away your ability to exercise your rights. When that happens, the law-abiding say, wait a second, how come I'm being punished for the crime of another? And their trust, and when they say, and we're going to have the police come and they're going to confiscate your lawfully owned and lawfully purchased gun. And by the way, we're not going to reimburse you for it. They're going to confiscate and take it from you. Suddenly you go from saying, well, the policeman is my friend, to the policeman is not my friend. And you become unwilling to call that policeman to come to your home if you need them. You become alienated from the state. And that is how you break the bounds of civilization. That's how you do it. And that's what they've been doing. They've been doing it for at least, since I became aware of it when I was doing, guns in the 90s and 80s and 90s, and certainly well before that. But the social contract that exists is essentially, I leave you alone, you leave me alone. And if I break the law, then the law protects you, but you don't get to use the law as a weapon against me. And going back to red flag laws, that is exactly the opposite of that social contract, and it breaks the social contract in a way that's irreparable. So let's see here. Well, that's Cheryl, you're on here. You're always a faithful viewer, and I really appreciate it. And your point is dead on. The guys who are always the ones out talking about wanting to ban guns are the ones who have people with guns protecting them nonstop. And I long time ago, I was when I was lobbying in Texas, and I had 14 states at one point or another, and Texas, I had 9 at that point. I guess I had 11 at that point. But we were trying to push a concealed carry law. And one of the things I kept you couldn't carry a gun concealed in Texas. And quite honestly, I had law enforcement tell me, well, we know who should be able to carry a gun and who shouldn't carry a gun. So we kind of like there just to be against the law, and then we can decide who should get popped. And the hidden meaning was, you better not be carrying a gun and be black or Hispanic. But if you're a good old boy, then that they know that is absolutely okay. And they thought that was actually, it would explain it to me why you shouldn't have equal protection under the law. And I kind of didn't agree with them a lot, but that wasn't the point I was going to make. The point was, when I was sitting there fighting this stuff in Texas for concealed carry, the example I used was pretty basic. A woman who was a waitress walking out to her car at midnight, 1 o'clock, her pockets full of bills and change, no escort, it's dark, there might be a light, there might not be lights, and she's walking out to her car by herself, and she's a target. She's a target. And to say to her, you don't have the ability to make a choice to carry a gun to protect yourself against a predator who might be waiting outside to rob you and worse. To tell that woman that she can't do that is an offense. It's offensive. And it's un-American. And so and ultimately, that was one of the strongest. That was, to me, the strongest argument I can make to a bunch of people who were essentially very comfortable with laws, which could be used by police to discriminate against some and not against others. Because, quite honestly, the law-abiding follow the law. And then what that means is, if you make a law saying I can't carry a gun, I'm not carrying the gun. If you make a law saying I can carry the gun, I'm going to carry. Law-abiding follow the law. And as a result, the only people who were set up as prey in a world where they couldn't carry guns were the people who were following the law. It was those who broke the law who were, in fact, the not vulnerable. I'm going to do something. I'm going to move off of this thing. I'm going to get rid of the Fox News thing. I have all these graphics and stuff that I've been trying to figure out how to use, and quite honestly, I've been a fail on it. But we're learning. Let's see. Well, I mean, here's an easy one. What would happen should restricted gun control happen? Criminals would find them anywhere. Well, that's what does happen. You know, city of Chicago has a homicide rate that's through the roof. Baltimore has a homicide rate that's through the roof. There's restricted gun control. In Chicago, it's illegal to own a handgun. Yet we've got people dying on streets every single day in Chicago. And quite honestly, the answer to the people that the mayor of Chicago says, "Oh, we need more gun control." It is, you're not going to tell people who are intent on robbing and overpowering others, taking their stuff, creating a territory, a drug territory, carving out a drug territory. You're not going to convince those people that, you know, gee whiz, you know, if you only didn't, it's against the law to have guns, so you're not going to have them. And it's just nobody else has them. No, what happens is weakness welcomes those who are willing to exploit it. And if a place is hardened against it, you have much less chance of people taking advantage. So this is, you know, that whole notion is absurd, that less guns equal, or harder gun laws make it harder for criminals to get them. They get them. I know you know that. Let's see about the red shoe. Red flag laws are thought police laws in 1984. Darlene couldn't agree more. The Supreme Law of the land, Second Amendment is part of that. We'll obey the Supreme Law. 100% correct, Bart. That is 100% correct. Second Amendment is part of the U.S. Constitution. It's the governing body for our society. It's the rules of the road. You know, compare it, if you want to explain it to a little kid, you know, play Candyland and say, here are the rules for Candyland. This is the Candyland Constitution. And those are the rules. Well, Second Amendment is part of the rules of America. It's part of the DNA of America. And if the left wants to change that, then have at it. But let's have a fight over whether or not you can repeal the Second Amendment. Let's not. And that, my friends, will be even many of the most avid gun banners will shy away from that because they want to pretend that, oh no, we don't want to take your guns. We just want to be a little bit safer, when we know that the bared teeth they're showing are bared teeth of those who are predators who want to take away our rights. Let's see here. Okay. So let's go Brandon's. I'm going to see. At Florida Girl, great. Unfortunately, I don't see where at Florida Girl is, so I'm trying to find the original. There we go. Okay. Has serious mental problems, is long overdue to get impeached from the first 2 hours. And, you know, I'm going to I don't know what I don't know what the president's mental state is. I can say that I desperately try not to make fun of him. Lord knows I've said stupid things, and I think most people have. He seems to do it more often than most. But it is chilling that the actions this administration takes, I'm not just talking guns here, the actions they seem to take on virtually everything only makes sense if the context is they're trying to fundamentally transform the country away from an individual freedom-based country and towards a command and control country. And it only makes sense to flood our nation with illegal immigrants if you want to create a France situation or an England situation where their electorates are now significantly populated by people who don't have shared common values. And that's what's happening. And I listen, if somebody wants to come to America, they go through the process. They want to become a citizen. God bless them. I love it. It's a great, citizen naturalization ceremony is phenomenal. But you know what? If they want to come here illegally, they want to violate our laws throughout. They want to escape and be fugitives and not show up at hearings. And then they want to be given, because they've had children, and they want to be given amnesty after the fact, after breaking all of our laws. Well, I'm sorry. No deal. It's not the way it works. You don't get rewarded for bad behavior. And that's what we're doing now. And we're flooding the country. And quite honestly, it's almost unimaginable how many people are coming across the border right now on a monthly basis. It's about 200,000 people a month. And you're talking about a mid-sized city in America, a top 50 city in America coming across the border every single month illegally. Guess what, folks? Country can't be sustained with that kind of an onslaught, and that's what's happening, and it's dangerous. So I agree with you, Florida Groom. Let's see. I'm gonna close up here by just kind of reminding us all, and I apologize if I'm trying to get to something here I can do. That wasn't where I want to go. America is still the greatest country on earth. America is worth fighting for. America is built on the idea of individual freedom, limited government. And sometimes every single day, to me, it feels like that's under attack. We have the omnipresent growth of the administrative state. But the key to this is to make certain that those who we entrust with protecting our power, our freedoms at the federal and state levels are well aware of how we feel. That doesn't just mean when they do something wrong either, or when they're contemplating something wrong. When they do something right, one thing that I would encourage everybody to do is call up Ted Cruz's office and thank him for standing up for freedom at the NRA convention. He's taking a beating over that. Thank him for standing up for freedom across the country, not just people in Texas. Thank him for standing up for freedom. Congressmen and senators need to know when they be patted on the head when they do good. I'm going to say something here that's a little condescending, and I don't mean it. I guess I do, but they need to be patted on the head when they do good, and they need to be swatted in the butt when they don't. And Ted Cruz took a courageous stand. He could have walked away and said, no, I'm not going to go. The time is wrong for that convention. Houston, NRA convention, Houston, the week of the Uvalde shootings. I mean, he could have walked away. A lot of politicians would. A lot of performers didn't show up. Lee Greenwood accepted, but a lot of performers didn't show up. It was, it was a time when, a lot of people ducked. Ted Cruz didn't duck. Donald Trump didn't duck. They need to know. They need to hear, whether it's through a Truth Social for Donald Trump or just calling up Ted Cruz's office or sending an email to Ted Cruz's office. They need to be thanked for standing up for freedom and being courageous and not ducking, because that is a rare commodity in Washington, D.C., and we need a lot more of it. With that, folks, I appreciate your being here. It's longer than I intended it to be, but I hope that we can come together in freedom. And I will be doing something tomorrow. Not sure what it'll be on, but I'll be doing something tomorrow, and hopefully you will join us again. Thank you. Take care.